IT company, probably especially when I'm talking about the SMEs. So this community can do a lot of this. If you talk about the Karnataka, there are 800 SMEs, or I think the present, probably to that extent, I'm saying that not only 70% of them don't know IT. So here is the platform that we can create to support them, to, I think, so that the SME industry can do better and probably can grow bigger. In terms of the other participation, I think we have been into the IMB, I think the ISB, I think went to the DPS. So we have been, I think, talking about the security right from the inception, so that they come to the industry, they are well prepared about the etiquettes of the IT industry, or etiquettes of the industry for that matter. In terms of the what worked well, probably I think I would say that launch was great. So there was a good events, 2 or 3 gatherings in the beaver shop as you're talking about. Probably I think it is more open, and then probably we can, I think, carry over this drink, that how can we mobilize more and more. Many CIOs felt that it is a different, it is not a vendor-based and vendor-driven event. So it is for us, created by us, run by us, and it is for us. That's the difference. And more importantly, I think it also teaches us, I think, in terms of how to, while using the technology, how well we can implement technology without, I think, being cautioned by probably so-called vendors community as such. In terms of the what we can do better, definitely we all talked about the, I think, multiple chapters, but there can be improvement in terms of what we can do better with the other chapters. More passion, more energy, more members are required, because this is the additional activity, this is the club which, the organization which is not meant for few CIOs or founder members. I think every year the founder members, probably the founder members remain same, but the governing body can change, right? So I welcome all of you whosoever interested to take out any of the basically governing council, I think, responsibility, so that I think we and can infuse the new ideas and so on. In terms of the collaboration between the local and other chapters, this is what our 2013 plan. More importantly, I wanted to know, I think, most of the things which even Ajay talked about, our career is over, so which is typically the CIO. I think this is what typically I am also seeing, in fact, with many of the customers when I go and talk to the customer. Many of the things which was done by the conventional IT has been changing. For example, some of them are directly going to the cloud, which basically eliminates the whole way of the way the computing power was run. To that extent, yes, the changes are coming. Probably I would say that how do we, I think, adapt these changes? I have, I think, few slides to present in that, more importantly, and with conjunction with. Before going to that slides, is a message from Somital. Talking about the same thing what we actually executed during the Bangalore Chamber of Commerce. Typically he wanted to work with the CIO club to support emerging companies. This is what typically they don't have much probably the resource or time or probably money in that respect, but definitely we can do something probably in terms of the ideas or in terms of our consultancies, so that they can grow bigger and bigger. So I will basically take to the other set of the presentation, which is more importantly how and some of the data which you will see that is very interesting, and I have seen this somewhere. I thought, I think, the interesting to present in the club. So basically, adaptability and managing uncertainty. If you really see the survival at the fittest, so that means it is not the strongest of the species that survives, is not most intelligent. It's basically the adaptable to change. We as a CIO, you know that we are adaptable to change because we manage internal customer. I'm sure that you would have, some of you also been part of the business. If you can manage external and probably in the internal, the thing is, to handle internal customers is much more challenge than handling the customers, real-time customers, because the expectations are more. But at the same time, since the technology is changing, here is the, I think, thought process, how do we change ourselves? Coming back, there was an exponential pace of changes as far as the human achievement is concerned. We grew from nowhere to today, the way the technology is heading to, but definitely this is not the end, this is the beginning. So probably this gives you the process, or probably thought process, I think what is going to be the next, and how well we adapt these changes in our career. So that means, if you really see whether it is a Infosys or whether it's Wipro, the first few $1 million, it took some time. and so has the human history. It grew till 1900 to grow out the $600 billion, but the output every 2 years it doubles. So that is the quantum of the jumps which has been taking in the place, whether it is a one company or probably as a overall the world economy. So to that extent, the world is changing fast. So how well I think we can be grouped into this. In terms of the real-time changer, for example, the ship, the way I think the anti-rolling stabilized systems used in ships, I think tries to balance the things. So that is nothing but the real-time change management. In terms of the management, again, how to execute, adopt. Probably I think between the execution and adoption, there's only 3 things used, which is even the IT perspective: time, people and money. Execute, short term, and the adoption is nothing but the long term. So that means we need to decide, is it possible to have a balance between the short term and the long term. Barriers to the adaptability is complexity and then inflexibility and then mismatches. To that extent, yes, you would have seen this same barrier even in your own organization. Every risk, for example, today the technology is at risk, so probably that also calls for the risk for the CIOs, but this also produced the opportunity for us. Chinese proverb, like uncertain to be uncomfortable, but to be certain is to be ridiculous. So it means if you are the situation of the uncertainty, that also I think adds to the innovation. Rather than basically be certain, because there are some companies I think who has been in the form of certainty, but they were nowhere. In terms of the why prediction will fail, I think there is two interesting stuff. For example, now we are using iPads and all those things, but it was predicted way back in 1977. I don't know why people want a computer at home. So that means that is been predicted way back in 97. So that means I think there are so many predictions has been made which can be true probably the 10 years down the time. So it's all time to prepare. We say that once in a lifetime incidences, there are many incidences. Every time it happens, we say that only once time it's happened. You see that right from the most of the things that we know is a dot-com bubble burst, 9/11 or the Great Recession which is happened in the 2008-9, but this is not all. I think more to come, but it's up to us how well we prepare. The impact of the high improbable, again, the backspan is enough to disprove all the spans are right, because that was spotted in Australia, and probably you know that I think by the time I think it was spotted, all the theory that only swans can be white has been completely right. In terms of there's an interesting organization, I think it also cuts across how well our disaster recovery. There is an organization called Kiffey, Brewitt and Woods, which is based on the 3 banker, I think the specialists who started this. If you really see any of the, I think, BFSI segment, right, these ratings have been very, very critical. But in the 9/11 attack, if you really see, 177 of the people been died, including the chairman in that particular incident. To that extent, this can, so I think the situation can be so brutal. So there is a book on In Search of Excellence and In Search of Stupidity, which talks about how the technology companies has budged. For example, if you really see the lack of adaptability, the top 10 companies, which is published in way back in 1984, I think except the Microsoft and probably the Symantec, none of them actually will figure out in 2011. So this is what basically the changes can bring to, probably I think you know all of Novell, you know all of the Lotus, you know all of the World Perfect, but where are those companies, right? You know probably the Blockbuster, I think, which is very good in terms of the CD, I think DVDs and all those things. Now they have also filed for the bankruptcy, and so has Kodak, which I think which has been numero in terms of the films, the photography films. But when the digitization happened, I think they really went and filed for the bankruptcy. HMT dominated the market for many years. Their lack of adaptability has completely they have taken out of the market. In terms of, we don't know, there's a question of where it will land. Finally, there is, as a one-liner, if you can't win by being big, be small. If you can't win by big, small, be big. The first rule of the winning is there is no way, one way to win. So what we are telling is, here there are minds of 50, 60 members, whosoever basically is there. Let's figure out what is the way to win. And the winning component may change every time. There is no formula which probably will continue. For example, if you really see print industry, this is the one industry I would say that it's much more adaptable to change. Right from the blogs, right from the paper, right from the versions, they completely innovated again and again. Euro crisis, all of us know. Markets, all of us know how basically it spiked, including the today political environment which is talking about. I think where the FDIs and all those things, anytime probably the government probably can be withdrawn or not withdrawn depending upon what the decision is being taken. It's so uncertain. FED balance sheet, if you really see, the currency reserve is so high, so still it's basically giving so much pressurized in terms of the economy, worldwide economy. In the Europe, all of you know, there are so much of the billionaires of the currency in the units excess, but you know what is happening in whole of the Europe. China learnt it hard way in 1978. I think the hero Deng, he really created the history, and now you know where the China is leading. India did in 1991, where Manmohan, when he was a finance minister, pledged most of the gold to and then he actually changed the whole way of equation and the whole way of the economy. This is the slide when I'm talking about the references from what I'm talking about. Can future of the IT services retain in India, where we are supposed to be the #1 outsourcing provider? I know in the BPO segment already people have seen that jobs have been shifting to Philippines and other part of the country, right? Are we putting enough efforts to improve the brand? CIO and cloud. Are we going to be Chief Integration Officer or Chief Innovation Officer? Probably I leave this thought behind, and how well basically we wanted to adopt this, because the technology will not change. Probably another 5 years this may remain same, right? But it's a thought for what our successor is going to do, what we are going to give them in terms of the job, whether their job will remain as we had enjoyed in our own career journey, or probably they are going to end. So this platform can create that kind of awareness, and we can take some of the steps which possibly can overrule for the 20 years and then above. Thanks a lot for listening to me patiently, and then probably I think I wish you all the best. We can have informal sessions, and probably more and more I'll encourage, I think, people to participate in such events. Probably today, and definitely five of us can't run this forever. Probably we need more brains, more power, more innovation, even to run this CIO club. Thanks a lot. It's my pleasure.
Natarajan, thank you so much. That was pretty insightful, and may we have another large round of applause, please. The reason is, I just want to reassure our chief speaker for the evening that we are still awake, full of energy before he comes onto the stage. We need your attention completely when he's here. But before that, there was one slide which Ajay was mentioning about the surveys which the CIO Club does with ENY. The theme for the 2012 survey was Enterprise IT Investment Trends. ENY are our knowledge partners, but this entire survey is driven by the CIO Club, where a lot of us, both at the chapter and the governing body level, spend a lot of time, put in a lot of effort to bring out these surveys. The copies are available. It's outside at the registration desk. Whoever is interested could pick it up while you're walking out. That's the first one, the announcement I had to make. The second one is, a little unwinding here. What I would do is, I will call Shefali on stage. Shefali has been the entire back office for CIO Club across the country, and I think she needs a very big round of applause before she comes onto the stage. Then I would want to invite the only lady CIO who is a part of the Bangalore chapter to come on stage, Padmaja Ravishankar from 24x7. And what we are now going to do is doing the first lucky dip for the tab. Okay? So whoever have not put in their business cards into the bowl, you still have a chance to do it. Okay? But if there are two cards of the same individual, you are disqualified. That's the rule of the game. Well, we have our mechanism of finding it out. Please don't worry about it. Oh. There is a reason also why I have Padmaja here. She's a very good friend of mine. We went to college together. So it's just an indication to you that you know which card to pick. Yeah, yours is there. I'll pick that for you. I can't pick it for myself, nor can you do it for yourself. Agreed? No, that's disqualified. So we have a deal. Okay? All yours, lady. Sudesh Agarwal. May I invite Lakshman sir to come on stage to do the honors. Right. This wasn't planned.
Should I try again?
No, this is done. This is done. This is fair. This is fair and square. Huh? This is not match fixing. Congrats, Sudesh.
All these guys, without this one, have done a great job. I guess Sudesh has been a great part apart from that. So please give him a big hand and probably deserves.
Thank you. I'm sure Shefali is going to discard that particular business card, so that he doesn't get the second opportunity. But I would actually want to keep it there, because if his name comes up again, he loses the first one also. Okay, good. Thanks, Padmaja. Thanks, Lakshman, for the support. Okay. We'll give time for that. Let's get... let him run it from the thumb drive itself, no? Why do you want to copy it? It'll just take about another minute. A quick word on our sponsors for the evening. We have IBM as a platinum sponsor. Then we have LogMeIn as our silver sponsor, and we have Atharvan and iCertis as our associate sponsors. We thank them for their support. Okay. Before we get on to the next speaker, just a quick introduction about our guest of honor for the evening. We have Mr. Ashwin Velladi, who is the director of KPMG in an advisory role based out of Bangalore, who's consented to be a part of the evening with us, and then we look upon his thoughts, his words, and his wisdom acquired over tons and tons of years of experience, what he has gained working in various capacities across the globe. Ashwin's been with KPMG for a little over 3 years now, after he relocated back from the US. He started with E&Y, spent about 10 years there in IT role there. Then he was with US Cellular, where he was working with them in the capacity of their CIO. He was a senior vice president IT and technology with the Yankee Group before he moved back to India. He leads the statutory and what's that, Ashwin? Sorry. Statutory, right? Statutory and performance consulting line. A little tricky for me, but we would want to hear from him on what it means. Ladies and gentlemen, a very big round of applause. Mr. Ashwin Velladi of KPMG Bangalore is a guest speaker for the evening today. Can you hear me? You guys can... never works, yeah. At least it's predictable. Okay. All right. You can hear me fairly okay. So, first off, thank you to the CI Club for giving me an opportunity to be here. I'm glad, and
listening to the keynote or the opening address by both the secretary and the president, characterizing as career is over, I thought it's a difficult task for me to talk to you guys a little bit about what topic or what set of things that you guys asked me to speak about, which was primarily around our observations within KPMG and my personal experience around leadership as it means to the CIO role. Okay, so we'll try to keep it anecdotal, and this is just, as we start, it is just one person's experience. My point of view, I'm curious to obviously during the interaction hear from all of you on your experiences as you've been on this journey. See, the topic, as I was told, was about leadership. So let me start by just kind of giving some context around a frame that within CIO advisory at KPMG we use, and this kind of sets it up, because leadership for all of you guys, you all are practicing it, you're living it, so I am nobody to preach and kind of give one message, but this is just to share some experiences, and this slide kind of sets it up, saying leadership is very situational and depends on who is driving it, who is in that role, and what actions that person or that situation demands. So that's the essential aspect of what we have observed, using obviously some of our experiences with customers, as well as learning from them, from their experience as well. Different personalities, different styles, and there is see, we often hear, when I work a lot with the CXOs, little less with CIOs, but when I work with them, you often hear that, and somebody mentioned it in the opening address as well, saying, hey, the CIO doesn't understand my language. And I'm sure we in the IT space often get accused of saying, whatever the business says, you can't understand it, Ashwin. You're just not skilled enough to understand my domain, either in supply chain or in fixed income derivatives or in cold storage for some other back office provider, whatever the business problem is. So what I'll try to do in the next few minutes is kind of elevate the conversation one step up, talk about certain key characteristics of leaders, and then bring it down to the level of how a CIO can be perceived in those situations, and then perhaps some takeaways and observations which just to leave you guys with. So this is a fairly simple model on leadership. Okay. So the first part, which again most of us play this role, but it is sometimes not very clear and evident. Okay. From the CIO perspective or any leader, primarily the concept of being a strategist. Now what it is, apart from it being a nice word, you all are often faced in the budget cycle, in terms of your conversations with business partners or even with your own team. What is the trade-off you'll make? What's the choice? Do you do CRM on mobile because you think it's the coolest technology? Do you always go for the best ROI? Is internal rate of return the best? So how do you justify certain investments in IT? And that concept, that decision making of what choices to make and what not to make, we find again within KPMG as we help folks, this is the most difficult thing that people have to deal with. Okay, so as an example, we are working with a large 3PL supplier, logistics company. Now their CIO wants to automate certain aspects of transportation part of their value chain. Okay, so there's very cool technology to kind of measure and record tire pressure, to look at different aspects of the driver control, to monitor fuel consumption, to do all sorts of things, and he really believes that this is the right thing to do because it will help the business. Okay, so he goes on, and this has happened in real, and kind of makes a presentation to the business owner saying, sir, we have found this kind of technology, we have tried the pilot, we have done the homework, we think it's good for you. I just want to poll the room here, do you think that project got approved? Yeah, it was completely shot down. Okay, and they had people like us come in and say, help me connect to the CIO. I am not understanding why he is doing these initiatives when we have not asked for it. Okay, and then the CIO had a different point of view, saying, here I am supposed to be the steward of technology. I researched this thing out, I presented, what's wrong in that? Okay. So obviously, on a lighter note, it led to some consulting dollars for us, but and we've got an we've got offering around that very problem. But then you step back and wonder, why is that the case? Why is the person not able to make the right choice that the business thinks is right? Now business isn't always right, but the point is, why isn't that dialogue or communication happening? So the strategist's role as a leader is definitely a very key thing to look at. The second is balanced scorecard. Some of you must have implemented it, some of you may not have, but all of you in some way or the other, through some spreadsheet or some fancy MIS, you all are outcome driven. It has to result in project execution, some dollars saved, or perhaps some business benefit. Whatever the outcome is, this talks of the larger model of leaders. You must be outcome driven. You must be able to tell your teams that what's the net result, how can this actually benefit them and as well as the company. See, this is an aspect which is more, my experience is that at least in the Western economies, this aspect has come about because of the sheer lack of talent. A leader as a teacher, a CIO as a teacher, trying to encourage and build up his next level of team. I wonder how many of us do that here, but there are some very good examples of, see, recently a few months ago I was asked to be in one event here called the Technology Premier League. Again, that unfortunately is vendor led, but the essence is clear. It is focused on building the next level of the next 100. Okay, you all are already leaders. What are you doing in your own organizations to build the next generation? Okay, and will they relate to you? Is that something that they look forward? And it may or may not be in IT, it may be something else. So a leader as a teacher is a fairly important role as you look at yourselves and your careers. The last aspect of kind of the simple 4-box model. Now obviously for consultants, anything should fix in a box of 4. Okay, so I've tried to keep that paradigm alive and always stick to the rest of the slides are also mostly 2x2s. Okay, so you got to be people oriented. Again, I won't speak too much on this because there are many anecdotes where we have found through research, you all have read through surveys, that people stick in a company and work because they like their boss or don't like their boss. The outcome of their reason to leave or grow with the company is the immediate supervisor, not the entire company generally. So how are you people oriented? Are you just passively communicating the company's message, or are you really building and kind of taking that forward? So under this frame, how does the CIO look at? Now this is again something that we have pulled out from context. Okay, so here, unlike the career is over model, I'll take a little more upbeat view. Okay, the I here has 4 key parameters. Okay, integration officer, innovation, intelligence, and infrastructure. Okay, so the basic idea here is that you, as CIOs, you are actually play all these roles in different measures and in different situations every time. So just one quick question. If you look at the budget allocated to these roles today in your organizations, where do you think the maximum dollars or rupees are spent? Any guesses? Infrastructure, yeah? What's the percentage? Yes, so it's 80%, okay? So that, to me, when we look at this and we do our research, it has 2 things. One is, a lot of the background of the CIO is from the hardware network DC center side, and lot of the expectations consequently, perhaps inconsequently, from the business is that you keep the thing running, you make the slide work, you make the laptop kind of work, get the iPad integrated to the enterprise, whatever the task at hand is. But that's surprisingly high. It's 80 to 85%. The next one is Chief Intelligence Officer. Here the intelligence connotation is for BI, MIS, actionable information that you give the business. That's around 5 to 10%. Okay. The rests are, integration is the role where you all keep systems current and make sure that the APIs and the integration layers, all of these things work. Innovation probably speaks for itself. So the least amount of dollars is in the innovation role, no matter how much. So now I'll bring back the example. Doesn't mean that you have to do one at a time. Okay, the situation may be that you are moving from one box to the other as the practical project or that opportunity or that discussion with your internal stakeholder evolves. You may kind of go around it or take more than one hat on. Okay. This is often, when we show it to some of our customers, it is often an eye-opener. People, as most of you did, is like, well, I am mostly helping with the infrastructure, and then it gets them thinking on some action on what to do on the next few boxes. Okay. So that was the model that we think will work in the future in the next 5-10 years. But you all have all seen surveys of the thought that business says IT department does not deliver real requirements. Okay. IT obviously says, as we heard here as well, that business does not fully understand the possibility of what we can do. Now I'll tell you one example from my role. When I was with E&Y, I was primarily in IT. Okay, I was working on the IT side of the services and working with CIO. So all my language was business requirements, use cases, estimate to complete, how many headcount, budgets, priority, that kind of language. Okay. When I moved on to a role in US Cellular, this is a wireless company in the US, there it was more business. It was product architecture. It was selling to the market, and this happened. An interesting incident happened with